Okay, so like I said in my previous presentation, if you look at figure three, remember we're still talking about the commodity market, the IS curve. If you look at figure 3, 5.1, yeah, that 5.1b now, that's here. Yeah, you're there. 5.1b. Now, the effect of interest rates, all right, on the aggregate demand through investment is derived. Each curve gives a relationship between aggregate demand and income. Each curve under this 5.1b, under this 5.1b, shows the difference between aggregate demand and income. All right, the total expenditure. Is you only have four curves there. All right. Now, now each curve gives a relation between aggregate demand and income. An interest rate falls from R1 to R2, investment increases and shift the aggregate demand upwards from C1 to C11. Look at it now. When the interest rate falls, all right, from C1, you see the fall from C1 to C2, and it push the consumption from C1 to C11 upwards. All right, look at it. Just look at the C1. The interest rate falls. All right, from C1 interest from 1 to and it put the area the C1 move from C1 upward to C11. All right, just stay there on figure 1b, 5.1b. Now, what means that um what means that the aggregate demand curve curve upward from C plus 1 to C plus 1. The equilibrium level of output therefore increases from Y1. If you check your schedule, where the income Y1 is 620. If you look at that, that's the income schedule. All right, you see Y1 is 620. It moves from 620 to 622 to Y2 because the interest rate fell from R1 to R2. You remember when there's an interest in the income rises. If interest rate falls, that means many people there will be money for loanable fund for investment, and income will rise. That's the point that we're making here. So now it fell from the interest rate fell from R1 to R2, then the income rises from Y1 to Y2. Look at it now. Just go back there again. All right. Y1 to Y2. So if you just look at it, interest rates, look at the Y1, this is 220, and it's 620. So interest rates fell from R1, the figure is not clear now, to R2. All right. Then the income rises from Y1 to Y2. You look at it, it's 620 to 622 to 660. Do you get the point now? Because of the fall in interest rates, all right, what means it shifts the consumption for consumption of CI, it mean the aggregate, the total expenditure or aggregate spending, that C plus I moves from CI upwards, and the interest and the income falls rises from Y1, all right, to Y2. That is in figure now 620 to 660. Now, what it means in effect is that thus the equilibrium income is Y1, that's 600, when the interest rate is R1, all right, and Y2, but the 620, when the interest rate is at R2. Look at it. Well, that's called it the equilibrium income. Look at it, R2. This is the equilibrium income is 4, R4, when the interest rate is, I don't know whether you appreciate what I'm saying. Just go through it, just follow this and follow that four diagrams. You see the how systematic here in the arrival. So the equilibrium um, level of output therefore increases. Get the understanding. The equilibrium level of output increases because the income has risen from Y1, which is 620, to Y2, which is 600, all right, to 660, 660. Thus, the equilibrium income is Y1, 600, all right, where the interest rate is 4, R1, noted by 4. Then Y2, which is 620, where the interest rate is R2, right? The interest rate has fallen. So that's why the locus of this of income equilibria for various interest rates is shown on the right side of figure 5.1b. The locus, the point, locus, the right side of figure 1b. Look at it. These are the locus. You see, I look at it, figure 1b. See, the right side of it, that's the locus. When you draw this time, show the locus of this is show 1, 2, 3. This is the locus. And that's why between intersection between interest rates, investment, and savings. And so this is the IS curve with an obvious negative slope, like the demand curve, left to right. Then figure 5C, 5.1 shows a more detailed form of deriving IS curve using four quadrants. Figure 5, 6, 5, 6. Why you take this is that for you to begin to know using the four quadrants. All right. What it means that the first quadrant shows the relationship between interest rates and investments. Look at the first quadrant. The relation between the first quadrant tells you the relation between what is the quadrant one. They have seen it. Look at it. Interest rates and investments. You can see it. Interest rate and investment. That's the first quadrant. All right, there. Interest rate and investments. Then the second quadrant tells you the relationship. The second quadrant shows the relationship between savings and investments. The second quadrant is savings. Can you see it there? The second quadrant, S, is equal to investments, savings, and investment. The first one is interest rates and investments. Look at it. R, interest rate and investment. The second quadrant is savings and investments. All right. Then the third quadrant tells you, um, yeah, why the third and fourth quadrant show the relationship between savings and savings and income, and interest rates and income. So the third and fourth quadrant respectively tell you the relation between savings and third quadrant between savings, all right. Between the third one shows you relation between savings and income, where the fourth one tells you interest rate and income. Look at the savings and income, the third quadrant, the third one tells you savings and income. All right. The relation between savings and income. Look at the savings and income. Then the fourth quadrant is interest rates, all right, and income. Interest rate and which is fourth quadrant? Interest rate and income. This one is savings and income. So now listen carefully. So at the rate of interest rates, which is 10 in quadrant one, investment is 25. Look at it. At the rate of interest rate in quadrant one, look at it. If interest rates, this is the first quadrant. Interest rate is 10. Look at the 10. You see there. Then investments is 25. If it's 8, investment is going to be 35. Look at it. Interest rate is 10%. At the quadrant one, the investment is 25. Just take time. Then cutting, look at it. Cutting savings and investment equality in the quadrant two. It will now cut the savings and investment equality in quadrant two. Look at it. Savings and investments. Look at it. It now cuts it in quadrant two. When this one is 25, it costs, we get here and it costs savings and investments in quadrant two. Look at it. Look at it because it says you then then savings is 25 at income level 500 quadrants. One, the savings is 25. Look at it now. The income level is 500 quadrants. Look at this. Savings is 25, 500 quadrants. Very interesting. Then you will now see that the interest rate of 10% correspond to the 500 quadrant in the four quadrant, 500 in the four quadrant. Look at it in the four quadrant. The interest rate of 10% correspond to the 500 quadrant. Have you seen it? Or in quadrant 4. Look at it. So, so the rest of interest rate, investment, and savings can be traced to the form the IS curve in quadrant 4. So we just want to the idea of you see the economy, that's the understanding of the economy. The interest rates, investment, and savings have relationship in an economy. And that's why the goods market, the commodity market, you need to understand the workings of the IS curve, the model. The interest rate has a perceptible, very strong relationship on investment. If investment is high, if interest rate is high, like I said, investment will be low. Why? Because loanable funds will be for you to generate credit. It is not going to be attractive with high interest rate. It is happening in the market today. It's happening in the economy today. All right. But if the interest rate is low, you can see investment will be high, and when the investment is high, the income you'll be able to generate income, and it helps to grow the economy. So that's exactly in the goods market. I said the goods market or the money market or the commodity market is the productive sector of the economy that helps to grow the economy. All right, good. Now, IS in a closed economy with government. Recall that the closed economy is in the equilibrium when aggregate supply, the total income, is equal to aggregate demand, total expenditure. That IS in a closed economy is the equilibrium when the total income, all right, the aggregate supply is equal to the total aggregate demand. The total aggregate supply, the total expenditure, aggregate supply is equal to the total income, aggregate demand, which is the total income. This one is income and expenditure. Aggregate supply, the total expenditure is equal to aggregate demand, the total income. In other words, I'm saying aggregate supply, the total income is equal to aggregate demands. That is total expenditure or leakages. Or leakage are equal to injection. In other words, leakages are equal to what? Injection. In other words, the total income is equal to 6 plus I plus G, where S plus T is equal to, that's what we call um, mm, um, I plus G, C is equal to autonomous consumption, that's C plus Y plus B, Y C plus B plus YD. That's the autonomous consumption plus BYD. That's the consumption influenced by income. I is equal to this. G is equal to government expenditure. T is equal to taxation. S, savings. True. So when you get all this, these are the formula you see in a closed, what you see in a closed economy. Because why is it a closed economy? Because you only talk about C plus I plus G. There's nothing like import and export. And an open economy, if you look at the model here, the model here has stopped at C plus I plus G. There's nothing like import and export, X minus M. So that's why it's a closed economy. A closed economy is within the economy. This is the kind of thing you see in a model within the economy. But when we begin to look at the external economy, the open economy, which that's what I'm going to show you now, it tells you we'll now begin to look at import and export. So let's look at the IS in an open economy. IS in an open economy. In an open economy, there's no more difference between IS in a closed economy and that of an open economy. The functional specification remain the same as in the closed economy, except the import and export functions are added with them, right? With them, with their respective multipliers. You see, the only difference that import and export are added in the open economy, you will not have an import and export, like I explained earlier. So the letter will explain the extent to which the change in them will determine the position of the IS curve. So for the algebraic derivation, right, of the IS equation in an open economy, see equation 430. Then we remember that use the new investment function. We're going to use new investment function, which is which we have said before, that original investment function, that's within the purview of our discussion now. I is equal to 1 sub 0 and IR. All right, and I plus 0 and the interest rate IR. That's so. Now let's look at shift in the curve. I've known what the IS curve, shift in the IS curve. The IS curve shift to the left or to the right due to changes in any of the components of the aggregate demand. That's the total expenditure. An increase in consumption, investment, government expenditure, and export will shift the IS curve to the right. These are what we call the aggregate demand, a total expenditure. Aggregate supply, total income. Aggregate demand in an economy, what are the aggregate demand of the economy? Total expenditure, consumption expenditure, right? Investment expenditure, government expenditure, and exports. So all this is expenditure on your international trade, expenditure on government expenditure, administration, and all that. In investment expenditure, these are what we call the aggregate demand, the total expenditure in the economy, not household, the whole of the economy. So we're saying that this IS curve, all right, that is the relation between investment and savings, all right, and we are saying this IS curve will shift if the component or an increase in the consumption, investment, government expenditure, and export will make the IS curve to shift from the right to left. Look at it. Look at figure 5.3. The shift of the ISO, this is where there is no shift. You will just maintain that demand curve left to right. But once this aggregate demands, the total expenditure in consumption, in investment, in government expenditure, in export, it will shift IS to IS1. Look at it. It shift to the right. Note this. Now, a decrease In any of these consumption, we shift the highest curve to the left. Look at this, left, IS2. All right. I hope you're seeing it now. You're seeing it. That's good. By how much the highest curve will shift depends on the magnitude of the change in the components and the value of the multiplier. The magnitude of this change that will determine how the highest, whether it will shift left or it will shift right. All right. On the other hand, an increase in savings, taxes, imports will shift the highest curve to the left. When we begin to have increase in savings, increase in taxation, that means when you say increase in taxation, income are no longer there, to be shrinking. The highest curve will shift to the left. We shift that to the and on to the right. When there is a decrease in any of these variables, when there's a decrease in taxation, on imports, in savings, it will shift the highest curve to the right. All right, that's what. Again, the extent of which the highest curve to any of this direction depends on the magnitude of the change in the multiplier. It is not possible to postulate precisely the impact of these changes on the level of income, all right, and interest rate, except we know about the LM curve. So I say it is not possible to know the impact or to postulate the impact of these shifts on the income and interest rate, except we know about the LM curve. The LM curve is what's called the money market. The money market. In general, a rightward shift of the highest curve may increase income. You agree with me? While the leftward shift portrays a decrease in income. Note this, very critical. I will ask you questions. Why does the highest curve shift to the right on the left with a diagram? Explain why the highest curve shift to the right or to the right, left or to the right. Very simple. I'm sure you'll be able to know the reasons why this thing shifts. All right. So now the ISO is the initial IS curve. IS1 depicts an increase in IS curve, and IS2 depicts a decrease because IS1 is a rightward shift, IS2 a leftward shift. To demonstrate how the changes in investment, for instance, results in the shift of the IS curve, let us recall that the numerical illustration in 5.1 with autonomous investment of 75 and the equation 5.4 was derived. Y is equal to 7, it is there is 700 minus 20R. We can determine the intercept of this equation so that Y will be 700 at 0 rate of interest. Conversely, if interest rate is 35, then Y will be 0. These values are obtained, just look at the mathematical connotation. So you just get it. But it is there when I get there. Just if you don't understand it with your mathematical background, just endeavor to let me know. But I know it is very very clear. And when you see okay in the interpretation now, when I look at it, what my graphically shown that the intercept are depicted in Y. Y is the income axis, R is the interest rate axis here now. So if autonomous investment increases to this, consumption will remain at this. Consumption remains at this. The equation is taught this. So what they're trying to say is that once this one, the consumption increases, when interest rate increases, it gives you that you remember that IS curve will shift to the right. When the income level increases, the IS curve will shift to the right. But if it decreases, it shifts to the left. So you take time to go through the mathematical, take time to get through this while I enter the money market. The money market is going to be in the second, in this third model. I think I will have to. Uh, I've given you details of the community market. You can see the interplay, but you cannot work effectively. The IS cannot work effectively in an economy without combining with the money markets. That the LM curve, which I earlier mentioned. So in the next class, I'm going to show you the relation between the goods market or the commodity market and the money market. But just note it here that there's an inverse relationship between interest rate and income under the goods. So once the interest rate is high, the income, the total income, all right, in all the total expense, the interest is high, there is this tendency that the income will decrease. But if the interest is low, the income will increase, because what it means in effect is that you will now have the ability, the capability to have more money, go investable funds. Investors can go and borrow money and low interest rates, and it will help to grow the economy. And when you're growing the economy, if the multiplier means that you'll be the total income will be an increase. So I'll meet you. I'll take you next time, and I think I'll be with you next time. Yeah. Thank you so much. Ala- Alaji, where do I stop? Come now, come. I'm talking about. I feel better. That just